Hey guys, this is Eric Weingarten with Weingarten Racing. Today's Saturday, so it's an update video day. There's a lot that's going to be covered in this video. I'm going to show you these Promax CNC heads that I did the port for, and I'll show you why you should probably buy them from me, because there's things that can make them a little bit better. I'm also going to show you a set of Profiler small block Chevy heads that I just finished porting. I'm going to do a whole video on that on Monday, but I'll kind of give you just like a little intro on those and kind of show you the difference on some of the stuff. And I will also obviously give you updates about the Camshaft Challenge that's taking place October 21st. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, go back and watch the Saturday videos where it says Cam Challenge, and you'll get more of the information about that, all the engine specs, because a lot of people want to ask questions in the comments on videos like this. And you can think of my whole channel as a book. And if you're watching this video, you're watching you're reading the end of the book, not the beginning. So there's things that are answered in other videos. So go back and watch that if you want to know more about it. But that's October 21st, so it's about 2 weeks away. But we got some more intros about the competitors and some other stuff to talk about as well. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. There's also other stuff I'm sure I'm going to show you. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first competitors I want to talk about, this is Joe Carroll. He is the guy on the left, the bigger one. I'm just teasing. He's a good guy. Now, this guy, he doesn't really necessarily own a machine shop. He is actually a lineman, and he works down in Shreveport, Louisiana, but he is no slouch to engine stuff. He competed in the Engine Masters for several years. Matter of fact, this picture you're looking at, that's the first year he entered. He finished 5th, which means he was in the money. The other thing is he's also won it one of the years. So this guy is no slouch, definitely knows what he's doing. A very, very smart guy. I asked him how he came up with the camshaft events, and he says, well, that's just experience. So he said, I played with enough of them and just experience. So he just challenges and does different stuff, and that's what he uses. He did say he would like me to tell that none of this would be possible about John McLemore from PTS Engines. That's his partner. It's helped him out through many of the Engine Master stuff. And he said that guy's a good dude. And let me tell you, Joe Carroll was one of the first guys I met when I competed in the Engine Masters Challenge, and he's straight up good old boy, I promise you. So if he says a guy is a good guy, then he's a good guy. So John must be a hell of a guy. I guess he's got PTS Engines down there in Louisiana. I guess go visit him. But that's Joe Carroll. Next up is Brian Suter of Suter Racing Engines. Now, I've asked each competitor how they came up with the cam specs, and I don't care if they use tarot cards or dice. That's whatever they want to do. It's more for you guys to understand how they got to it. And Brian said he got where he picked his camshaft was from experience. And where did his experience come from? From the Whelen NASCAR Modified Series. He does a lot of the circle track stuff evidently, and builds a lot of the engines. They have to compete against some of the top elite people that build engines as well. And he does, I guess they have SB2 heads on some of their stuff, and he does really well with that. And he's got several championships from doing that as well. And he also has some land speed records, and it sounds like he's got a lot of experience definitely with building engines. It would help him pick the camshaft. He also did say he uses some software to help him along the way, but definitely more on the experience side, which is very important for all of us. So that's Brian Suter. As you could tell from the picture there, I am not subscribed to his page. I encourage you to, but you might say, why aren't you? Well, it's simple, because I don't want anybody thinking I'm showing favoritism. The next competitor is Brent Lyons. Now, he is probably more known in the Ford world. So if you're into Ford FEs, Clevelands, Windsors, he's definitely that guy. He's a Ford nut. So it makes it even a better story that he's entering an LS Cam Challenge video, because he even will tell you he doesn't have a lot of experience, as in any, with the LS engines. But he said, hey, I want to put my foot into the ring. I think I can do this. And he has entered. I asked him how he picked this stuff, and he said it's all about the combination. So he has other combinations they looked at to see what it would work. And that's how he picked what camshaft specs to run. I should point out, too, he and Joe Carroll have the closest engine cam specs of any of the competitors. They're only separated by the LSA. They have the same lift, the same duration on intake and exhaust. So interesting enough, but Both of them have different ways of coming to the same conclusion, evidently, or close to it. We'll see which one actually makes more power. He is a great and terrific guy. He builds Ford engines. He says, I don't build as many as I like to because he specializes in some really fancy ones. And he said sometimes it takes a while to build them. So he's not like one of those guys that just cookie cutters them. So, but he still builds engines, quite a few. I think he said like 6 to 12 in a year, but they're highly specialized. So got to give him credit there. I did ask him, I said, hey, you know, Daniel Powell's got a beard. Do you have a beard? Which he said, no, I have a goatee. So then I had to tell him, hey, look, man, I don't know if you're big or not, but us chunkier guys, we have to wear beards because it hides our fat face. So, but he did say he has a goatee, but no beard. And that's Brent Lyons. The next competitor is Chris Straub of Straub Technologies. You'll hear more about him later on in this video about as far as how we know each other. And that's a later story later on in the video. But I did ask him, just like all the rest, hey, buddy, how'd you come up with your cam specs? He said, look, it's not voodoo or black magic. It just, it's math. You got opening and closing events and the math that goes with it. And he's got enough experience, and this is how he's come to it. And that is what he has come up with. And so he uses math to come up with his. He has, now as far as those that don't know, he does not grind his own cams. He has 3 companies that he used to grind his cams, but he also has hired someone to be a lobe engineer that designs the specific lobes for him, and then the other people grind them for him. But he does sell a lot of camshafts. He's very well known on the internet and everything else, but that's how he came up with them. But he doesn't just sell his cams. Got to be fair to him on this. He has a large company. He sells parts to just about everybody, except for me, which we'll get to later in the video. But sells parts. I think he might even sell a few engines. Don't quote me on that. But I know he does a lot of cylinder heads as well. He's got some CNC head porting equipment as well. Wish I had that as well. But yeah, he does those engine expos. If you ever watched those, that's at his place. So yeah, he does a lot of neat stuff. Lots of sales definitely going on there. But anyway, he gets his from math. He's a good guy to talk to if you ever want to listen to a talk. So there you go. That's Chris Straub. This head right here is the Promax 235 CNC ported head. And you can call them up. It's not on their website, but you can call them up and you can order this head from them. Just say it's a small block Chevy 235 CNC ported head. I want to order it. For whatever reason, it's not on the website, but this is my port design. So Promax contracted with me about a year ago and had me port a set of Project X 215 heads, and that became this CNC ported head. And I'm going to tell you today why you should buy them from me, because Promax is still going to make money on them, or you can buy them from Promax. But there is definitely some benefits from buying it from me. And we'll go through that. So just to kind of recap, what happened was probably a year ago, Promax contacted me and said, hey, can you port a set of 215s and we'll make them into a 235, or we'll make them into our CNC head and we can do those. I said, absolutely, be happy to. So they contracted me and they paid me. Now, I make no commission when you buy them from Promax, 0. But anyway, on the dyno mule, we tested the 215s and the stock ones than these. And these gained about 30 horsepower. And it gained more with certain intakes and less with others. The interesting part was, even though this head is 20 cc's larger than the stock 215, it made more horsepower and torque even at the lower RPMs. It made more horsepower and torque over through the entire curve of the dyno runs on the 406 dyno mill. So it goes against the wisdom that the larger head makes less torque. No, it's the more efficient head makes more torque even at the lower RPMs. Now, this would have probably made even more horsepower if the engine had, one, been bigger, say a 421, or we turned it up more RPMs. That we just didn't. It didn't have enough camshaft. It also was a pump gas deal, and you could go watch those videos. But since that time, they've been doing them. Now, here's the things I've got about them. I'm going to tell you why you should get them from me. This is part of the disadvantage of not being involved in the manufacturing process of this head. So to give you an idea, just like a little recap how it works, I poured a head. So they send me a casting. I put my own valve job on it. I then port that, and then I send it back to them after now I say port it, a lot of research and development, on and off the flow bench a bazillion times, getting things as best it can be. And then I send it off to them and they digitize it. So it's a machine that copies the entire thing. And then I get it back and I hope to see what it looked like. And they sent me the very first prototype, And what they had forgot to do is they did not put my valve job profile on the intake and exhaust. So I didn't tell this in the videos, but because, well, it made sense not to, but what I did on the head that they sent, because it was still their valve job profile and not mine, I put mine on it that I designed with it, because I knew in the future, because I gave them the profiles, that's what they were going to cut to use. So I was trying to be as honest as possible, because I knew if I used that one, that's not the one they were going to use. So I cut my valve job profile on it, because that's the one they were going to put on it. Flash forward, we are now, I don't know, 6 months later. I ordered this for a customer, and this is it. And this is how it came. So it's a little bit different. Let me explain. They did, in fact, use my valve job. So I gave them the profile, use this on the intake. They did not on the exhaust. That is definitely not my exhaust profile. The other thing, and this is the disadvantages of not being involved in the manufacturing process on the head, which again, it would be very hard to do, is the heights aren't right. And let me show you. Let me just give you a little heads up behind the scenes. This is my Brodix Dragon Slayer 253 CNC head, standard port head. They are available. So if you'd like to buy them, I have a couple sets in stock. But what happens with this is I get it from Brodix. It doesn't even have a valve job in, doesn't have the guides in. It does have seats installed. I sent it off to my guy that does the CNC porting, and whenever we developed this, we went back and forth. So shipping it one way, shipping it back several times. So he'd be like, do you like this? Yeah. Change this? Yes. Change that. Just to get it right. And in the end, once it's done being CNC ported, it comes back to me. I install the guides, I hone the guides or ream the guides, and then do the valve job. Why is this important? Because look at this. This is my valve job that gets put on here. And I have a height that I set this valve job. Now, how deep do I set it? And when I do this, it leaves, you'll notice it's pretty perfect. Each one's the same height. Look, there's no ridge here. You've got the smallest one. I'm gonna zoom my camera in. You get the smallest one on that corner. Let me see if I can find one that gets worse. Yeah, a little bit, I mean, barely nothing. But look at the exhaust part of it. You get no ridge. That's butter. That's how it should be. Because I'm the one setting those heights to get them right. I did that part. So not being involved in the manufacturing process, we go over here, we get this. Because the model was sent out perfect. The guys that CNC port this and the guys that put this valve job on, they're in America, so great. So this is a Chinese casting with American porting and American valve job. The valve job, as you can tell, seals perfectly. Fantastic. It's not the right height, and as you could tell why, it's let a ledge almost all the way around, especially here, and yeah. That, what happens is the air comes off this, and it hits that ridge, and it actually pushes back up. It kind of restricts the flow area. It's no bueno. So that one's not as bad. Well, you can still see it. But look at the exhaust. The exhaust, yeah, that's bad. Look at this part's even worse. A heavy ridge, heavy ridge. And you can see a heavy ridge there. Let me turn the head just a little bit, loosen this. Get a better view. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. You can see that a little bit better. You can see the ridge there, but that's as cast, so it kind of makes sense, but it's because it's too deep. Same here, too deep. And, yep, ridge all the way there. And that's not my exhaust valve job profile. It's not. I know this because I have it all set up ready to cut, and I just wanted to drop it in and try to cut a little, see where it would make a mark. Yeah, it's not my exhaust profile. So they corrected the intake one and put my intake valve job on, but it's sunk down too far. And then they used a different exhaust profile, not mine, even though I gave them it, so it's not the same. I'm not necessarily griping about this because functionality, that head, it seals up perfectly. The valve job's perfect. What it doesn't do is when I put it on the flow bench. So when I put it on the flow bench, I was like, man, whew, it's really hard to take. And I know some of you are watching this, you don't understand. Everybody thinks that our grinding here makes so much difference. You know the largest part that can kill flow? The valve job. And people think you're just trying to sell it because you got this expensive valve seat and guide machine. You're just trying to sell a valve job. I cannot express how much flow is lost from a valve job, period. You want to say all that grinding and everything. And I did too before I had a seat and guide machine and a flow bench. And then I realized, whoa, the valve job is the most important, period. Nothing else is important. Your short side, do you think that's important? Screw up your valve job. It's not important anymore. It's far worse. The valve job is the most important thing. So it's not because I'm selling a machine. It's because I had enough time on the flow bench to tell you. So the right height, how deep you put it, and if it gets blended. Now, here's what I mean also too. When I had him do my Dragon Slayers, one of the things we went back and forth was I said, hey, can you do me a favor? I want to set the throat, which means I want to grind this by hand, because clearly you can see I burred it in and that's how it is. And the reason for that is because I had him when he's doing the CNC program. So for the first maybe 1/4 inch or so or 1/2 inch, he's leaving it 10 thousandths smaller than the model. And you might say, why? That guide hole was put on by a different CNC machine than the one that's doing all the porting. Same with the seat and everything. So when that guide goes in, if it's off slightly, the whole thing's off from what the port program is. So it can mess up where your throat is. So having him make it smaller, I can blend it and make it exactly right like it should be. Yes, this takes longer, but it's almost perfect when it's done. So that's why they brought it probably to size. So whatever the model was, they got it as close as they could, and that's it. But as you could tell, they didn't do any blending. There's zero blending done. So to flow as good as it is that way, awesome. And you might say, well, wait a minute. There's people that don't blend theirs at all that are CNC ported. Yes, probably what they're doing is they're also installing the guides as well at the same machine at the same time. Then it's exact on. This head, this whatever CNC machine drilled the holes for the guides wasn't the one that ported it. So it does make a bit difference. So what am I going to do and why you should buy them from me? One, I'm going to redo this exhaust valve job, put mine on it. And I'm also going to blend out this ridge that they have here and also blend the valve job in here to get that right. The other thing is, one of the things we kept going back and forth on the Dragon Slayers was where the CNC lines match up, because there's a porting probe that comes in here this far. There's another one that comes in from this far. Where those two probes meet, there's always going to be a line. This one's almost non-existent. It's perfect. It's butter. It took a lot of time for him doing the programming to get that right. This one, which you can't hardly see, but you could definitely feel, has two. There's one right where my finger is, and there's another one a little bit past where the apex of the short side is. Two distinct lines, and this one, the closest one to it, is poked out, which means the air is hitting that, and again, restricting flow. So what I'm gonna do, and the reason why you should buy them from me, I'm gonna redo that exhaust valve job, not because it doesn't seal, because it does. The valve job sealing perfect. Redo this valve job, blend this out, blend the the throat, and get rid of that little ledge there and put it back on the bench. Another thing to be aware of is this. When you order the hydraulic roller setup for the heads from Promax, they just started putting this on it, which is a nice spring. These are like what you'd use on your LS stuff. These are pack springs. You got the titanium retainer. Nice, right? Well, the problem is with this spring, it's got a less installed height. So to make up for it, they use a shorter valve. This is their valve. Do you see something missing? Yeah, the back cut. There's no back cut on it. The reason why is on their shorter valves, they don't have a back cut. The longer ones that they use for solder rollers do. So one of the things I've got to do is what I did with this one. I put a back cut on it. So it's important to put a back cut on the valves. Very important. And the camera's not going to focus on it. There we go. So that's going to also get done. Because I flowed this, just to give you an idea, just a little recap. I flowed this. And this head, the model flowed almost 330. So that's the one that I ported. The one I got, the first one's back from the CNC, I think they were like 328. This one barely did 320. And the thing is, that back cut was huge. So just to give you an idea, because you're like, no, you can't lose that much. This port on that 400 valve lift flowed 237 on the intake side. The model was like 256. Putting the back cut on the valve went to 252. Do you see how much you lose in just the valves and the valve job? Huge. The exhaust, this one's hard to take. The model went 240s. The one that came off the CNC machine, the first one that I redid the valve job on it went 240s. This one goes 220. The port is perfect. The valve job is not. I mean, look, that's beautiful. That's money. It's perfect. The valve job restricting flow. And it's really hard to convince people that like, nope, all you gotta do, I'm a DIY guy, or I just got a port and that's gonna be perfect. Valve job's the most important. Get that done first. You're gonna save yourself tons of time, and that makes a huge difference. So why buy them from me? I'm gonna redo the valve job, blend all that stuff out, and it's gonna be as close to the model as it could be. Because how much power is it probably worth? Maybe 10, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe 10 horsepower. You're like, well, are you gonna spend more money for 10 horsepower? Yes. I try to get things perfect, as close as humanly impossible to do. Especially because I'm proud of what I did to make that. So anyway, next thing to talk about. These are the Profiler small block Chevy heads. And this is probably gonna be your next video that you see me do. Why am I bringing these up? I have not seen a set since before COVID. And you might be like, oh, they're that rare? No. Want to talk about some of the mistakes that companies make? It's Profiler. When I first made some videos that many of you have watched comparing Profilers to the AFRs, at that time, the Profiler heads were about $600 cheaper than the full CNC ported AFRs. They were more expensive than the import Chinese heads because they're American made, and that made sense. And then about COVID, they went full retard. They said, you know what, let's just charge ridiculous amounts of money. And to give you an idea, this head comes, and right now it's all ported, but when you get them as cast, they have an as cast chamber. They're hand blended, bowl blended. And I should have taken more pictures. I just didn't because I just got them done. Anyway, hand bowl blended, no CNC work done on them. They're $500 more expensive than if you were to get a set of stock Dragon Slayers. And the stock Brodix Dragon Slayers from the factory, now this is my CNC ported one obviously, but the stock Dragon Slayers you get come with a CNC chambered, CNC bowl blend, and CNC gasket matched. That, and it's American made, better casting quality I should mention too, was $500 less than this with no CNC work, hand bowl blend. And I could tell you, you see how thin this divider is, which we'll talk about in the video on Monday? That's how they come from the factory. I just made them squared up. Yeah, you don't have that problem with the Brodix one. So, yeah, they're just stupid. And then if you want them assembled, just give you an idea currently, because I don't think that quite captures how expensive this head got. This head currently is only $50 cheaper than assembled. Assembled this head is only $50 cheaper than a full CNC ported AFR head. That's ridiculous. You got no CNC work. And one of my other gripes, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is the seats. The seat material is excellent. Excellent. Cannot complain. Ductile iron, it's the ductile iron that should be in the Project X heads. Perfect. I put a 208 intake valve in it because they come with a 208. As you can tell, it's almost at the end of the seat. And you're like, wow, that's weird. And I thought so too, because I used to cut them to 210. I'd be almost to the verge of the seat. I don't think I can anymore. You're like, so what's the big deal with that? You know why they did that? It's to save money. You're like, how would they save money? On a Brodix casting, they're called interlocking seats. A lot of the wedge heads are this way. What they do is they cut the register for the exhaust first. They pound that seat in. Well, actually, they cut the register first, take it out of the machine, pound the exhaust seat in. They then put it back in the machine and it cuts the intake seat because part of the intake seat cuts into the exhaust seat, and then they pound that in. It takes longer to do. This one, to save money, what they did was they made the seats shorter and smaller, not wide. So what they did is they cut the seat out, and they could pound both in at the same time because they're not interlocking. So you can't go to a much bigger valve. 208's about it. It used to be a 210, but it looks like they've shortened up their seat a little bit more. If it is, then you're at the very end of it. $500 more expensive per casting than that pair. Yeah, like I said. But anyway, that's the next video. Let's go on to some other stuff. You might be asking yourself, well, why are you selling them if they're that expensive? Let me explain. I love the Dragon Slayers. They're my personal favorite head to port for 23-degree valve stuff. These are my CNC ones. I love selling them. The catch is they start at 225 cc's and they can only go up from there when hand porting. So one of my popular ones is a 241. That's a hand ported one. Sold a ton of those. You could use those for circle track stuff. But what the disadvantage of that is, the head is too large for smaller engines or turning less RPM. It just is. So Brodix, love the company, really in my mind has nothing that's great for a lower than that that can be ported. So their IKs are good for street stuff, but more of a slightly radical stuff before you get to the size where you need this. They just don't have anything to fit that market. Profiler does. So like they have this 210, and they also have the 195, but this 210 ported, it really fits the market area, the size area before that one takes off. So that's the reason for it. In this particular case, this customer said, I want the best that I have to fit this. What do you got? I said, well, it's really going to be the Profiler, but it is expensive. He says, I want the best. So there you go. Now to your updates about the Cam Challenge. So again, it's October 21st. I actually had someone in the comments like, why you just keep milking this? Why don't you get this thing done? Well, here's why. One, from the very beginning, I said it would take place in October. We are currently in October. And in all fairness, it would have happened this week. So this is the first week in October, because I asked Gary Dunsworth, where we're dynoing, if I could schedule either for the first week or third week. You might say, why not the second? I'll get to that in a minute. But we eventually settled on the third week, and here's the reason why. Yesterday was Broken Arrow, that's where we live, homecoming. My son, who I love to death, he made a homecoming king for swimming. And I knew that this was going to happen anyway. So for this week, there's no way I was going to be on the dyno and miss him doing his homecoming thing, walking in the football field with his homecoming queen. I wasn't missing that. So no Cam Challenge in the world, no way. So I put that off, and that's the reason why it's now in the third week. Otherwise, if that hadn't been there, it probably would have been taking place this week. However, it's still October 21st. I should point out too, October 21st is the first day, but what's going to happen is I'll put the Texas Speed camshaft in there, get the baseline. Also, I'll go through some of the other cams to get the push rods that they want to see. Hopefully I can get a hold of all of them. If not, they'll just do running the 8150. And get everything marked up. And maybe on the first day we'll have at least one cam done. But really on Tuesdays when it kind of is going to kick off and it's just competitive camshaft. So Mondays get everything lined out. Maybe one camshaft will get run. Tuesday it's... And also, this is a big one. I'm getting a little frustrated with people saying, for some odd reason, I will be showing favoritism to one person versus the other in this camshaft challenge. That's gotten to the point where it's like very frustrating. And let me tell you why. I don't care who wins. This whole challenge, if one person was to go back and watch from the beginning, it was because people were running their mouth in the comments about how good a camshaft guy and everybody else is an idiot. And I said, why don't you just prove it? Here's a shocker. None of those people that put those comments entered a single camshaft. So some of you think I'm going to show favoritism to certain competitors. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you like this. There are 23 camshafts that are entered. Of the 23 and the competitors that are entered, I've only gotten a camshaft ever from 2 of them. So, and the first one, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, is Chris Straub. So here's your story in case you want to know about Chris Straub's camshaft. And I'm doing a little intro on him as well today. But if you think I'm showing favoritism, I bought none of the others I've bought camshaft from. Brent Lyons? Nope. How about Suter? Nope. You could ask him. How about Daniel Powell? Nope. None of them I've gotten camshafts from. Did you use David Visor's specs? Nope. None of them. The only one was Chris Straub and one other. So Chris Straub will talk about. This is a very interesting one. And in all fairness, I didn't buy the camshaft too. So this actually makes Chris Straub look pretty good. So here's your little, and I'm going to make the story as short as I possibly can. It's 2014, I think, or 13. So about 10 years ago, doing Engine Masters Challenge, it was a competition took place, and I was actually building this engine, was helped out by Donnie Key, and he's in Georgia. And so got the engine all put together, and this time I had a comp cam, right? Or getting ready to put this engine together, and I got this comp cam that I'd spec'd out for the engine, and we're there in Georgia trying to get this thing put all together so we could dyno it. Go to put the camshaft in, will not go in. It's super bent. And I don't blame comp. I think whoever, I think it was FedEx, banged the crap out of that camshaft. And I was like, crap, I've only got one more day I have left to be there. So I'm like, in emergency, I'm calling different people. I call Crane because they were still open at the time. None of them could get me a camshaft. I call Chris Straub. And this is a true story about Chris Straub. So I'm like, hey, Chris, man, look, I'm in a pickle. Can you get any way you can think you can get a camshaft within like a day? And he said, you know what? Give me in about an hour. Gives him an hour and he calls back and he's got, I got one coming tomorrow. Don't cost you anything. I got you. And that's Chris. I'm dead serious. And he sends the camshaft in, and this true story with it. We put it in. We put it on the dyno. Those lobes were so aggressive that it ended up breaking. Rocker arm. It broke a lot of stuff. It just didn't work. So we got to make a few pulls. It was okay on power. It just wasn't great, but it broke a lot of valve train stuff. So anyway, frustrated, not with him because I didn't blame him at all because he did his best. He got me a camshaft in short notice, really short notice. 24 hours from calling to having one there, that's fast. Anyway, got it back home and went to Dunsworth, and I ended up, at that time, Comp said, send us the camshaft, we'll send it on back. So Comp sent it on back. I was like, I'm just going to throw it in there, see if it's better. Than, maybe it won't tear up as much stuff, and maybe it'll be better. Well, one, it made a lot more power than Chris's, and it didn't break stuff. Don't think I'm blaming Chris for that camshaft. That was in a really, really hurry. I also changed stuff since then, so it would have less chance of breaking parts. But anyway, but when you see that magazine article, because I was really thankful for Chris and his help, I put his name as the one that did the camshaft. Because honestly, he did a fantastic job on an extremely, extremely short notice. So it sounds like I'm all chummy with Chris. And if you knew anything about Chris Straub and our history, you would know that is not true at all. Because he hired this one person that I for sure did not agree with. And yeah, that guy made me beyond mad and made me so frustrated because Chris somehow kept defending him during those times. And if you're familiar with the forums, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But I couldn't stand him. Flat out could not stand him, so I couldn't stand Chris. So I was like, F you, Chris. That's how I felt about him for the longest time because of that guy. Yeah, I was like, you two are like peas in a pod. I couldn't stand it anymore. Out. Chris has since apologized for that guy, but I have done zero business with Chris Straub since then. Zero. And I didn't buy that camshaft, so there you go. So before you think you're going to cut Chris Straub a deal because you bought a camshaft from him because he sent you one. No. Of all the people I would say that were on the list, the ones that probably had the most animosity for would probably be Chris. Now, like I said, after talking to him, we've come to a better of a deal. But if you think I'm showing favoritism because I got a camshaft from Chris, you're incorrect. The other guy, which remains anonymous, hint, hint, that one, a customer said, can you just sell me this camshaft? I did. It's not a custom cam. So that was it. I don't even have a dealer account with that guy. So there's one of them that actually I bought a camshaft from. The rest, I have no bones about it. Matter of fact, I didn't talk to Daniel Powell to this competition. So for those that are thinking I'm showing favoritism, no. These are just guys. I'm only interested in the data. The camshaft part of it is just extra. So the who wins or whatnot, that's more you spectators. And I have to say, the majority of the guys that are entered aren't about winning. They're just curious to see what happens. They like to kind of prove themselves. So obviously, they like to do really well, but majority just wants to see what happens. So by far the majority, and that's how I'm in that boat. So I don't know how I can show favoritism. It's really just for knowledge. That's all it is. But anyway, let's get to some of those people. Oh, speaking of which, before I forget, I am putting a link in the description so you could donate to the Cam Challenge. And what you're going to get is why donate. The link will be in the description. So you click on the video, you go to the description. There'll be a link to my online store, and you can donate to the Cam Challenge. When you do that on the day before, which will probably be the 20th, but being that there's like 400 people that's already donated, I'm probably going to do it like the 18th, 19th, or 20th, just because it's going to take me so long to send the emails. Yes, it's going to be emailed to you. I'm going to email you all the cam cards. So you're going to get those before the competition even begins. So you're going to know each competitor and what their camshaft is. You're going to get those those days. So that's a huge benefit. The other one, as it's going on, I'm gonna try to send the dyno sheets to you for each one. And maybe at the end of the day, because I thought I might be able to do it by text, but 440 texts on a phone is insane. So it's probably gonna be email as well. And if that's the case, it's gonna have to wait till we finish the day, then I'll send them to you, which is still weeks before other people that don't do the contributions will see them, because I'm gonna wait to edit to do the videos. Speaking of which, just to prove my fairness, I'm gonna set up cameras on the dyno, like the computer screen and all that, so you can't see, look, I'm typing in different stuff so someone gets an advantage. And the other one over the engine. And I'm just gonna record all of it and I'll upload it unedited to there. So it'll be like 8 hours of videos for each day so people don't think I cheated somebody. But anyway, the last thing I'm gonna leave you with today is this. One time I asked people, one of my viewers, if anybody knew what this is. And they're like, my mom. They didn't have a clue, like the old timers. No offense to you guys, you probably wouldn't know this. If you had a younger child, like growing up during this time, you probably would know this one. This is the greatest cartoon I think ever, at least of the modern era. Anyway, I just heard this week that they're bringing it back. If you know what that cartoon is, you can put it in the comments. But that's where I'm gonna end my video. Guys, remember, I'm no Superman. I do not port cast iron heads. You guys take care.